Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Islander Sewing Systems, Tuesdays at 2. I'm Janet Prey, and behind the camera is Brenda Rogerson. We're here to help you with all your sewing projects, needs. Today, we're happy to talk about anything to do with sewing, any sewing questions that you might have, whether it's about fabrics or interfaces or techniques or fitting. Um, Whatever it is, we'd love to discuss it. Um, Today's newsletter talks all about sloper making. And I'm just going to reiterate while we're waiting for more people to join, but feel free to type any questions, any sewing subject at all uh, into the Facebook live, and we'll get to them in a minute. So, one of the things that we've noticed is happening is other uh, teachers in the industry are kind of following suit to teach sloper fitting. But this is of great concern to me because a sewing teacher who's sewn for many years and taught for quite a few can pick up a sewing technique in a few hours, maybe some practice over a couple of days, and they could teach it. They know they have to make samples, they know how to conduct a class, and they know how to sew. But that's not true when it comes to sloper making. Not just anybody is going to be able to help you get a well fitting sloper. And the basic reason, if you haven't read the newsletter, there's a little more in there, but the basic concept is unless you have been a pattern drafter and understand pattern drafting, what goes where, how to make it hang perfectly, uh, what needs to be on the straight of grain, and different things like that. It's not as simple as just using a pattern and sewing it together. Because every time you adjust a sloper, you are could be setting another part of the sloper off grain or make it ill fitting. And so many people who have tried, they get about eighth of the way into it, and then they realize, well, now I don't know what to do because I fixed this, but it caused that. And when I go fix that, it caused another problem. And that's what happens in a sloper. So that's why fitting is not a simple subject for a teacher to pick up. And it wasn't too long ago, maybe a few months ago, I had a teacher call, and she teaches and she's a good sewer. But she says, I'm going to take the sloper class, and 2 weeks afterwards, I'm going to start teaching it. And I didn't laugh out loud, but I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Here's the thing, everybody's different. Everybody, not everybody is different. So you could fit yourself and take a class from me and fit yourself. And then you could offer a class for 5 or 10 or 15 people. And here they come. And they're all different sizes and shapes, which throws the sloper into all kinds of different gyrations. And you don't know how to do it as the teacher because you haven't come across it. You've only fit one sloper. Making one blouse or making one pair of pants, and we're not talking about fitting, but sewing, that's easy. You can do that, you can hone your skills, and you can teach other people how to do that rather quickly. And when it comes to fitting, it's going to be far more complicated. We've had some requests for our patterns, not by the teachers, but by the students. So students are buying our pattern with a great deal of excitement, and they've signed up for a class. I I don't know from whom, but it's not from anyone who's ever been taught or certified by us. So just because they're using our pattern doesn't mean they're good or not good at sloper making. So before I signed up and paid a triple digit figure to someone to help me make a sloper, I want to know what's their background. Do they legitimately have pattern drafting experience? And when I say experience, I mean years of experience. I don't mean they took a class last year at the community college. Because again, it's not enough experience. And here's the other thing that's going to happen with people that have cavalierly thought they could teach a sloper class is they're going to have people with figures like this lady. And if you can see that, I'm going to turn her sideways so you can see how far out the hip juts on this side, and it doesn't on this side. Look at that. That is her legitimate shape. Once she's dressed in a sloper that hangs perfectly straight and fits her, you will never know that one of her hips juts out further than the other. But if she puts on a basic pattern or a ready to wear garment, it's going to be obvious. It's either going to be too big over here or too tight over here, and it's not going to hang right. Another thing I wanted to quick show you is all three of these forms are size 8. This is the form that they design all the commercial patterns and all ready to wear in the various sizes. They'll start with a 6 or 8 and they'll grade them up and down. When I say grade them, they're keeping the same proportions, the same distance, the same proportion of width versus the bust versus the waist versus the hip. And we're not all built like that. Pretty much most of us have very different areas of our body in comparison to what you'd find here. So that's why patterns don't fit. Patterns don't fit because they're not meant to fit you. They're meant to fit an ideal shape. And you're meant to make the differences to fit your body. So, like I said in my article, about 100 years ago, everybody had slopers. And if you were of the right amount of means, you could have a dressmaker. And guess what the dressmaker's first thing to do? She made your sloper. Because the next time you come in to have a dress made, she doesn't start from scratch again. And she does have a beautiful fit. And it takes time, takes a lot of time to make a sloper. It isn't something you make in a couple of days because you'd have to continue to adjust, especially if you're taking a class. Our class, I think, is six lessons. So it depends on how quickly you digest each lesson, but they are in depth. So anyway, you don't want to make one every time you sew. But what you want to have is your basic slopers for a bodice. There's several types and they're in the newsletter, but you can have a knit bodice, you could have a darted blouse, or you could have two different style of princess seams. Most people will have the knit and at least one or two of the woven ones. And once those are done, like I said, you don't have to do them again. And you're going to say, oh, Janet, but what if I gain 10 pounds? If you gain 10 pounds, you're just going to take a narrower seam allowance in the side seams. That's all it's going to be because that's where just a little 10 pounds is not a lot when it comes to fitting. 25, 35 pounds, and now we got to get a new sloper. That's for sure. Okay, so anyway, all three of these are size 8s, and I probably should just take this is a basic sloper before it's fitted. So it's not going to fit. If you're buying a sloper pattern or taking a sloper class, either from me or from somebody else, just know. Oh, Janet, but I bought a size 12 and I always wear a 12 and I don't have to make a lot of adjustments. That's okay. This is a sloper and we want to leave some room for adjustments to be made. One of those will be the shoulder slope. So we put this down and what we're going to see right here is this huge gap right here. And that's because her shoulder slope goes down. This garment was made for a shoulder that goes out like this, but she doesn't. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust those shoulders. And that's a pinning technique that we're going to use to create the new stitching line. And now it sits up there so much nicer. And you start out with the shoulders and you move on to the side seams after you get the shoulders. But guess what happens? 9 times out of 10, you get the shoulders just right. Then you come along and you want to get the side seams just right. And then all of a sudden you notice there's a hiccup up the shoulder because one thing causes another. So you've got to know, well, then if that happens, what do I do? And if you don't know what to do because it didn't happen on the one or two you made first, you're not able to help the next person. Um, so again, we would not pin it like this. We would take the seam out. We've got it basted. And the reason we would do that is we may need more fabric from the back than we do from the front, which ends up with uneven seam allowances, which is the right thing for a sloper. So often, and some of you will recognize, they'll tell me, oh, I wear an 18 front, but a 14 back. I'm real narrow in the back. So if that would be the case and and that's your shape, you're going to end up with a basic sloper taking a lot more seam allowance out of the back than you do the front. So these will be very uneven. And the reason I tell you that is because most sewers, especially if you've been sewing a long time, your instinct is to keep these even. Well, that makes sense because that's the way a pattern is drafted. But we're not making a pattern, we're making a custom sloper. So that's why those seam allowances will not necessarily and most likely not be even. So that's the first hurdle for most sewers, if believe it or not, to come across because they just want to keep those things even. What's another one that we could talk about? I think that's basically it, but I want to show you that this is a size 8 form right here. Now these two forms, these two gray forms are ditto forms and they're exact copies of somebody's body. So these are real people. Okay. So when you make with our sloper patterns, when you make your sloper, uh, your beginning sloper, you pick the size that best fits your bust line. And then the rest will work itself out. If you are much wider in the hip than the pattern is for your bust, so let's say you're a 14 in the bust, but you're 18 in the hip. When you get past the bust, you just start grading that line out till it gets to an 18 at the hip. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect, because guess what? We're going to pin fit it anyway. So the amount of seam allowance isn't irrelevant. It's the fit that's relevant. But you'll see, if you're a size 8, this is what a garment would be fit on from ready to wear or any commercial pattern. But if you're a size 8 like these ladies, how in the world is that ever going to fit? Things that happen in human bodies, and it's from birth, most likely. Sometimes it's from illness and sometimes it's accidents, but this I would guess is birth. One of her shoulders is much lower than the other. So that's going to cause the whole thing to hang crooked. So pinning those shoulders and getting them at the level they need to be as opposed to the level the pattern drafted them at. She has a real hollowness right back here between her shoulder blades. You don't see that a lot, but that will need to be corrected, but it can be corrected because we're going to put princess seams on either side. So we could take a little of the extra fabric that's going to be in there and scooch them into those seams. So anyways, I just think it's very interesting. Look at the derrieres on these size 8s. And you know, they're not going to be able to wear the same size top, but they certainly aren't all going to be able to wear the same pant pattern either. And this is nothing unusual. This is the state of the human body. Some of us, this shoulder is significantly longer than this one. Now, significantly in pattern drafting, but in real life, you probably never notice it unless you notice that the sleeve seam on this side hits over here, and on this side it hits way up here because the shoulder is going to be the same distance from here to here. So they're not going to land in the right place on the longer shoulder. And that can be uncomfortable. It maybe you if it's a deep enough arm side, you don't care, you don't notice it. Maybe the print kind of hides it. But the reality is the sleeve never hangs as nice. It can't because it needs to hang from the end of the shoulder, not way up in here. Okay. So those are just some of the reasons that people need to make a sloper. All right. I think I'll stop with my sloper talk for a minute and see if we have some questions. Okay. Go back here. We have a lot of people on today. Okay, wait a minute. It's funny while Brenna's looking for the questions. I don't know if this happened to any of you, but we came into work this morning and I said, "Good morning, Brenda." And she kind of looked at me and I said, "Yeah, me too." And she goes, "What is it after the holidays?" Well, first of all, as women, it's far more important to us some of the activities around a holiday, whether it's our job or not. We want to decorate, we want to clean house, we want to get all the gifts wrapped, we want to plan the meal, we want everything to come out on time. There's a whole lot going on. And then after the holiday, it's sort of a little letdown. We're calling it the holiday hangover. You just kind of got to really force yourself to have some enthusiasm to get onto a new project sometimes. But anyway, that's what we're calling it. If that happened to you, try to shake it off or go do something that you really like to do that's creative. It'll get your juices going. Okay.
Okay. Question,
Yeah.
are there ever any sales on Ditto forms?
Are there ever any sales on Ditto forms? I don't know of any. I know if you go to her website right now, she was promoting. The only time I ever saw a discount was that she there was going to be a price increase in 26. I don't know when that takes place, but I'd go to her website now and see because she put out a newsletter in November, I think it was, and said that very thing that the price was going up. So it might be a good time to take advantage of the 25 price. It may still be available, but that's all I know of. Okay.
Um, I think her name is Laureen and she's from Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And she would like to know, she says, my sister-in-law has scoliosis where the spine curves unevenly from side to side and also with abnormal curves from front to back.
Yep.
Is it possible to get a good fit for someone with such a form?
Okay. So the question is from Saskatchewan, Canada. And I've never been to Saskatchewan, but I love the name. I think it's kind of fun to say. Been to a lot of provinces, but not that one. I yes, we have fit in our last class that we did online. We helped two people with scoliosis. And let me tell you, you wouldn't even believe it was possible because when they put that on, it was all pulling every which way from the side to the back. It wasn't just a few wrinkles, it was a lot. So that's when you have to know where to start. And sometimes the student will argue with me, and I have to get like firm and say, no, we have to fit the shoulders first. I don't care where your issues are, we fit the shoulders first. And anyway, this one lady was so thrilled. She was over the moon because she'd never had clothes that hung right. And if you go on to, again, the Ditto Form site, one of the people she features, and I think it's right on her homepage, but people change so their website. So anyway, but this woman has some serious scoliosis and she shows the Ditto form with all this crookedness and then she shows herself in a garment, you would never know. So yes, it's absolutely possible, but it does need to be a skilled teacher. It can't be somebody who just thought of the idea because they heard other people were doing it. And I'm afraid that's what's happening right now. Um, I'm not sure because please trust me, there are plenty of people in this country and on this planet that are qualified to teach sloper making, but a lot of them don't teach. They're qualified because they're custom sewers or they work in the industry or they're, professors or something, but well, not necessarily professor because she wouldn't have as much experience. But anyway, whatever it is, there's lots of people, but they do need to show you that they've got what it takes. Otherwise, let me tell you about, we got a report back from a class and the teacher was teaching a sloper and the person was very disappointed. And we were grateful that she didn't use our pattern because that teacher assumed, and this is how I know she's not done it before, she assumed that your left side was equal to your right side. So she only fit them on one side. And now you can, cut your patterns on the fold, all this stuff. No, that's the problem. So now if she fit this person on this side, there'd be a bunch of slop over here on this side because this shoulder's higher than this shoulder. So it needs more fabric to come up here. This one needs less. So where's that fabric going to go? It's going to fall in a crease right here. So be careful because it's a lot of work and it's expense. And it's great anticipation to finally have something that's going to ensure that the garments that you put all your effort into are actually going to fit and look nice when you get them done. That's the joy of having slopers to work with. I've gone on.
Can you just take a minute to explain ditto form? We have a question, Dobsy
Okay.
is her name. What forms are you showing? Where do you recommend getting a custom form?
Okay. Dobsy.
Dobsy?
Okay. We hope we're saying that right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Dobsy, these are ditto forms. They're made by one company. The company's name is Ditto Form. And you can go to their website, dittoform.com. It's a one woman operation and she comes to you or you come to her depending on the circumstances, but she does have a circuit that she travels and she'll give you her traveling schedule. Or if you're near her, you can come to her. Or maybe she's coming to a city close to you. So anyway, you can work that out. Her name is Carol Hulls, Huls. Carol, she's lovely. She'll do a great job. What she does is she has a very sophisticated scanner, not a scanner that works out of your phone. This is a $20,000-$30,000 scanner. So it gets the entire depth. It measures everything. Everything. Brenda and I both have had it done. And it's a humbling experience when you hit our age and you don't want to see yourself naked. But that's what happens. Not totally, because you do wear some foundation garments. So that was some help. But anyway, so she does this, and then she has and she takes all your measurements as well. So she's scanning your measurements and she's taking your measurements. And then the form is crafted to within fractions. And then she comes through and does the finishing sculpting to make it perfect. And then covers it with this knit form. These tapes that are on here are pinned on here, and you can put them where you feel you want them. This is what I got. She loaned me a few different body shapes so that I could show you. So this is how she does it. You could do it any way you want. You can create, like for Brenda and I, we felt it was really important to make a mark where we wanted our arm side to end. Brenda's is going to be up here and mine's going to be down here because she likes a high and I like it lower, medium, baby. So everybody, but the same thing with the neckline. You may have a spot or specifically a spot you don't want to go any lower than. like your cleavage. Maybe you want to show a little cleavage, maybe you want to show zero cleavage, then you can identify that on your form as well. So that when you're testing a garment out, you're looking, you go, okay, wait a minute, that I can come down another ½ inch here, or I have to go up, whatever it might be. So it's ditto form. The only place to get them is from Carol, and she's in Michigan. Actually, she's not too far from us. She's in the suburbs of Detroit.
Lot of questions.
Did I get it? Did I get it?
Yes.
You get a nice little rolling stand. She's very light and she's pinnable. So many times you buy dress forms and they're not pinnable, and they should be, because you want to be able to stick that garment on there or that fabric and hold it in place while you're making sure everything fits. And if you get a form and you do a sloper, it won't be too long before you'll be doing a little bit of experimenting or a little bit of styling. And that's where that'll come in too.
Mary Jo says after she's taken your class, what is the first make
First thing to
what
make,
pattern? Yeah, do you recommend as a first to make after making the shoulder princess sloper?
okay. So I gave some examples in the class of princess seams. What I recommend, and I don't know if there's a pattern. I have the pattern, but it's not been published.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'll be teaching a class on it. So for me, the first thing I would recommend is kind of an athleisure vest, maybe out of polar fleece or a quilted fabric, and you don't have to put any sleeves in. You bind it, you see, and then you get the feel. Did I get this too tight? Did I get it too loose? That's the other thing with a sloper as you're pinning it on the body. You want ease, but you don't want slop. Slop is when you start seeing drag lines and it's sort of the fabric sort of hanging and it has some folds or drags in it. You don't want that, but then you don't want it skin tight so that you can't move in it. So getting just the right amount of ease sometimes, and this is what I say in the class, takes some testing, because we're making this out of muslin. Now you're going to go make it out of polar fleece. Polar fleece is stretches a little, it gives, and maybe it gives enough that it fits a little bit looser than you expected. So try some simple garments first to hone down the fit that you like, the fit that you want, and then go from there. But I start with something simple.
Okay, when you measure the arm side, should I measure the armpit to the shoulder joint or the outer edge of the head of the humerus?
Okay, no. So to help you out, all right. So when you're measuring the arm side in the pattern, okay, there's a notch that is a quarter of an inch forward of the shoulder seam. You're going to measure from the seam allowance, don't measure the seam allowance, but from the stitching line of the underarm of the arm side up to a quarter of an inch, that notch. And then the back is a quarter of an inch in front of the shoulder and down to the arm side. Now, oh, here, this is it too. So here's our arm side, but we're not going to measure. How's this, Brenda? Before I start babbling. Okay, so we're not going to measure from this seam allowance up to this seam allowance because that's not how the sleeve fits. The sleeve fits to a notch, and the notch is a quarter of an inch in front of this stitching line or this shoulder seam. So you're going to measure from notch to seam, and then in the back from the seam all the way over the shoulder to the notch. All right, I'm going to, just so because I'm sure I'm losing some people. And what she say measuring the arm side,
Yes.
not the sleeve? Okay. All right, so. Okay, so if this is the front, I'm gonna have a single notch here. This is the notch. So, and this is our seam allowance, right? So we're gonna measure on the seam allowance, remember that too. Don't measure this. Do you see how this is an inside curve? This measurement on this cutting line is going to be shorter than the measurement of the stitching line. So don't measure the cut line. I know a lot of people are confused by that. All right, so we're going to measure from here, which is a stitching line. We're not measuring any seam allowance. All right, so we're going to call this the stitching line here. And this is our notch. And in the back, you've got to go up over that to the notch. All right, is that clear? Was that Dosey?
Vicky, and
Yep.
she's a very.
She's
very
happy? Okay, good. And Vicky, I also have a YouTube video from 2 months ago, I think it is, on how to draw the arm side onto a garment. So let's say that you have short shoulders. So every garment you make, this is way too wide across here. So you have to draw a new arm side. That, or when you're making a sloper, you have to draw a new arm side. That's a real short video from Tuesdays at 2 or 3 months ago, to show you exactly how to do that. Okay. And then, of course, when you're measuring the sleeve to fit into this arm side, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to measure from the notch to the stitching line and the notch to the stitching line. All right.
Let's see. How do you match the material pattern across the seams when you use a princess seam?
Oh, okay. Well, there's a problem. There is a problem. I guess I'll just do this. All right. The question is, how do you match the fabric going across when you have a princess seam? The problem here is there's ease right here. And anytime there's ease, you can't match because you could match from the shoulder. How am I doing okay, or should I put it on the table? On the table? Okay. So you could match from here to where the easing starts. But as soon as you start easing, it's going to move the one piece up, and then you won't be able to match from there down. Okay. So I would avoid any horizontal things that motifs that you're going to want to match. Generally, with princess seams, garments that are made from princess seams oftentimes are solid fabrics or motifs that don't have to be matched. So you want to keep that in mind. You could certainly match the side seams, but those princess seams, and when you've got two in the front and two in the back, whew, it's not gonna, well, it's just not gonna happen. Now, when you have a sleeve, people want to match. You can match the sleeve, but you have to take the ease out. Once you take the ease out, you can match like a plaid on a sleeve. It takes some figuring and a little longer to cut out, but you can do it. But otherwise, if there's ease, you can't.
Okay, question. How can a person who is extra, extra large get a panty pattern to fit comfortably around the tummy pooch flap? I would think that would apply to pants also.
Okay, so we have a person who's describing herself or someone she knows as extra, extra large. And how would she get a panty to fit? Well, when you draft a pair of pants, you're going to get that measurement. Let me see. Pants go like this and this. So when you draft a pair of pants, we're going to measure you at this, the widest, this part right here. Well, we're going to measure the widest part of you. So if the widest part of your hip is 9 inches below your waist, we're going to measure that. If it's 12 inches below your waist, we're going to measure it because we're going to know where the widest part is. Then at the abdomen, we're going to measure down to whatever that funny name she called it, the stomach pooch flap or
So,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, stomach pooch slap,
Tummy.
flap. So we're going to come down, and maybe it's 4 inches, and we're going to measure that. So that's going to be part of our draft, and we're going to know how wide you are here and how wide you are here, and we're going to create that to fit. So, and of course, you're going to make them on a tricot or something that has a really nice give. But I think when a person is, as she said, extra large, you definitely are going to have to do the draft. The only other thing you can do is keep buying ready to wear till you find a pair that fits. But that's what I would do because we're going to measure you here, then we're going to measure you here. So we're going to know the widest part, and we're going to make sure that you have enough fabric in there.
I believe she's a new listener, so you might want to show her the book.
Oh, the pattern drafting book?
The pan.
Oh, the pant book. Yes. This is, I'm sorry, Brenda, thanks. This is our pattern drafting workbook. And it also comes as an online class that you can follow along. But you're really going to need the workbook because it teaches you how to measure, where to measure, and then, of course, what to do with it. But the beauty of this book is you start out with a clean sheet of paper, you take all your measurements. So you have this chart of your measurements. And then, and this is after it taught you exactly how to measure and where to measure. And then you just follow along. So it's like dot to dot. A to 1 equals side length. So I go to my chart and I say my side length is 46 inches. This is A, this is 1. So that tells me this line is 46 inches. That's pretty easy. And then you just go to the next one, A to 4. Oh, here we go. The depth at which the hip measurement was taken. Well, the hip line is down here. Now, I don't know because I don't have that measurement, but let's say it was 9. So we know to square a line straight across there, 9 inches down from the waistline. So it's very, very simple as long as you do two things. Take very accurate measurements, and that means somebody else has to do it. You cannot take your own measurements anyway. Secondly, that you double check your math as you go through, because sometimes we're going to have you subtract or add to a measurement or double. So you need to know math, but it's basic math. And the other thing, recently I taught in Chicago a pant drafting class on Zoom, and they were trying to work with eighths of an inch and then trying to multiply and subtract. No, we don't want to go down to an eighth. Generally, we just stick with quarters. They're easier to work with. And if the draft is off by a 16th of an inch, you won't know it anyway, but you can always tweak it later. But I stick with the 1/4 inch and above measurements to keep it simple and easy and keep my math straight. So that's our pant drafting system. Like I said, you can purchase the workbook and you can follow the workbook very well. However, if you take the online class, you've got visual instruction as well.
Marlene says tummy pooch flap is also known as a mother's apron.
Yes, I've heard the mother's apron thing. Yes. So lots of terms for that.
Okay. One of the best take homes I had from your sloper school was to not make your shoulder seem too short. I was having issues with my arm side and sleeves until I lengthened the shoulder. Ta-da, all is well.
All right, so this is someone who took our sloper class last fall, and who is it?
Patricia. Hart.
Patricia, and she has longer shoulders than the basic measurements to make whatever size she wears. So she said it never quite fit right, but after taking the sloper class, she realized lengthened the shoulders, and all of a sudden, voila, she has a lovely hanging and comfortable garment to wear. This is a question I get a lot. Where's the end of the shoulder? And oh my goodness, some of the terminology they come up with, is it just behind the ball joint? Is it in the middle? No, it's at the end of your shoulder. Okay. So if you're going to wear a garment and your arm starts just after your shoulder, right? This is your arm. Okay. Is this a good angle? So, no. Yes. Okay. So this is where you want the seam to be, right here. Which means I want to be this length plus the 1/4 inch seam allowance, or 3/8 inch seam allowance, because that's what you should use to put a sleeve on. So that's where I want the seam. I don't want it back here, because remember, the sleeve is curved like this to cover the rounded part of your arm. You don't want it back here. It's going to look funny. You've got stuff you don't need back here because you don't have an arm back here. So right here. Funny thing is, one time I bought a Vogue uh, pattern, and it was extremely off the shoulder. This might have been 15 years ago. You know, the way oversized, and the shoulder seam was way down here. And they actually put it, this did not have an arm side, it was just straight. But the sleeve had the curve, the arm in it, the arm side. And I'm like, what? If it's all the way down here, I don't have this. All I need to do is sew on a straight piece of fabric. Uh, so I hope that demystifies. Where's the end of your shoulder? It's where the end of your shoulder is. The end of my shoulder is entirely different. Brenda, she's got two different lengths. Mine, I think, are pretty symmetrical, uh, but and that was a joke on me because I had straight symmetrical shoulders. So when I started fitting other people, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how lucky I was. People kept telling me, you're lucky. You have straight shoulders. Your shoulders look so. I didn't know how lucky I was. So, anyway, as far as fitting goes, okay.
Let's see. I don't think you can answer this, but
I might try.
yeah. Ethel would like to know, can you recommend somebody to help with significant scoliosis? Oops, it just, oh, sorry.
Ethel would like to know
In Minneapolis.
in Minneapolis. Um, no, I don't know anyone in Minneapolis that would be a fitter. And again, here's the thing. We're there's 2 or 3 of us out there. Connie Crawford was one, Margaret Islander was one, and that's how I ended up absorbing their businesses, because we floated from one side to the other. All 3 of us. Clotilda was another. Clotilda Lampy, if you remember her, she had a catalog called Clotilda. Anyway, these we are all women who love to sew, women who started sewing when we were children, but eventually ended up in a professional position and learned more than the average home sewing teacher has available to her. So that's the difference in, where was I going with this? It had to do with the scoliosis, finding a scoliosis.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to just say, and I tried this before. I said, well, go find a tailor in your town, or whatever. And the person did, and it turned out the person wasn't worth, as we used to say, their salt. So again, one of them found a person who said, well, if you fit one side, the other side's the same. I don't imagine that woman has fit very many people. And if she has, I don't imagine she has the quality standard that I would like in my garments. So I cannot. I can say, we'll have another online class this winter. It may not be till February, but take our class because we work with you with photos. And then we also do private Zoom sessions to make sure with people that have a lot of difficulty either understanding the directions or just getting the fit. Because as you can well imagine, there are people with scoliosis that don't have any idea how to sew. So, but they would like somebody to make a garment for them that look good on them. So maybe that's another reason a person might want to get a sloper made so that they could hand it to a qualified seamstress and then they could make their garments.
Okay. Things keep moving. Sorry. Patricia would like to know, um, do you have any classes, in parentheses, Craftsy online? And can you repeat the questions because they're having a hard time hearing me?
Okay.
That include the factory methods for sewing a flat collar. Can't remember the style name right now, but without a band, like in Hawaiian shirt. And in the same vein, making that type of collar on a jean jacket sewn on home machine. I've struggled getting all the fabric that happens to go through my machine.
Okay. So here's the thing. There's a lot to unpack here. All right. First of all, uh, bear with me. I'm just going to pull this dress form around here. Okay, can you do that? This is one of my patterns. It's the Islander shirt, and it has the convertible collar on it. And all the directions are in the guide, as well as we did a sew along here on Tuesdays at 2, 3 or 4 episodes, and showed you exactly how to cut it out so that you can match the pocket and how to construct it so that it looks this nice. There's a paper tag on the back, but you can see that collar's beautiful. Now, we also have a video on, oh, I wish I could think of the name. It wasn't that long ago with the orange top. And what we show you is how to make we called it a faux collar stand. Okay. So what it is, and the directions are on, oh, I think it's a $5 download on our website. But you create a shape like a collar stand, but it only goes to the shoulders across the back and it sits in the lower part of this collar. And then when you fold this collar down, it keeps it up there. So not as big of a deal for men, but women. A lot of women want that up there, and you want to know why? Because it gives you an instant facelift. So to get that and put that in there, but all very specific directions are in that download, and I think it's only $5. And the directions for the convertible collar we also did, and that's a download, isn't it? The convertible collar, I'm pretty sure. We did so that you could take a button-up shirt and change it into a convertible collar. So we did that as well. And I think both of those are downloads. But if you have any follow-up questions, just send me an email, islandersewing@comcast.net, and we'll get back to you with specifics. But both of those were great. They were very popular. We loved them. If you look at last month's Tuesdays at 2 video on YouTube, you'll see me in an orange rayon blouse. And that's the blouse that I did the demonstration and put that in the back of the collar.
And the jean jacket.
The jean jacket, we did it on that jean jacket, Brenda.
Yeah.
The thing is, it depends on the loft of your denim The thickness of your seams. How many seams are you trying to put in there? Are you trying to fold under the denim with interfacing and put it on top of the double seam allowance plus the collar on you? That's a lot of thickness. Some home sewing machines just won't do it. Now, my machine does it with ease, but what I sew on is kind of, it's the nickname of it is light industrial, but it's not, that's not the proper name. But Baby Lock makes them, Brother makes them, Janome makes one, and Juki makes one. And they only do straight stitch, but they work very similar to an industrial machine in that they have more power. They can go through thicker. Um, they stitch twice as fast as a home machine as well. And they have 4 different feed dog, and the straight stitch is perfect every time. It's all metal parts. All you have to do is oil it. Maybe never have to take it to a repair.
And our technique, no interfacing in the seam.
What about no
No,
interfacing?
there was no interfacing in the seam allowance on our technique.
Only for that,
That,
yeah.
yes.
So Brenda was saying, we didn't put any seam allowance in our stand. So when we did that collar, let's see, a collar holds like this. We put that in those, so here's our shoulder seams. So we put that stand, and this say is our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we put that stand right on top of that. So we stitch, well, I think 1/8 of an inch above it. So we went 1/8 of an inch above the stitching line, and that's what the collar stand's gonna look like. And you don't wanna go past the center. But again, for $5 you can download this. You don't wanna go past the center, but you wanna be fairly close to the center. Because when this folds down, this is gonna hold it up here in the back and keep it from collapsing. So that's how we did that, but we don't have it in the seam allowance. But if you're having trouble just getting the convertible collar on in a denim, it could be your machine. Now, I don't know, so I'm not intentionally insulting anyone's intelligence, but I know a lot of people aren't aware of the pressure of your foot. So your foot comes down. Up here, there's usually some kind of a knob that on your machine. So this is our machine. Okay. Thread. So up here, there's some kind of a knob, and usually you could see what you're doing to put more pressure or less pressure. Obviously, you need a lot less pressure on denim than you do on a basic cotton or rayon. So maybe that will help you if you haven't tried that already. Okay.
Maybe not. Oops, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Here's an interesting question.
Okay.
What percentage of your clothes do you sew yourself?
Oh, I love this question. What percentage of my clothes do I sew myself? Over 50. That's the best I could do. Obviously, I'm wearing, I bought. Usually I don't do the show in garments that I didn't make, but I had a holiday hangover, as I said earlier. I just couldn't get my act together. But anyway, so about 50%. I have, but the older you get, the more fitting needs you have. So for me, I used to be 5'2". I'm now 5 foot. And I wear maybe a 14 or so. Well, the crotch is always way too long on me because I have no butt. I'm one of those no butt people. It's just like the long legs. That's all it is. There's no butt there. So the crotch is always way too long on pants for me, and now they're even worse. And then the pants too long anyway. So making pants is a better move for me in most cases, outside of not your not your daughter's jeans. I can get those to fit me quite well. Um, but yeah, I would like to make almost everything, but time doesn't allow. Okay.
There's a question about, could you provide us with a list of sewing machines that you know have more power and go through thicker fabrics?
Okay, so I already named them, but the question was, can I provide a few names of machines that do have more power and will go through more thickness? Before I completely answer that question, let me say this. When you buy a $10,000, $7,000, $3,000 sewing machine, and they show you all the magnificent things that it can do, and you get very excited. I remember the first one I bought like that. And I got all excited because it embroidered these, it wasn't the disc yet, but it embroidered these little duckies and it did all this stuff. I never embroidered any little duckies. I never used half of those options they have on their machine. And sometimes their options are counterproductive. So, to say that, and also you can do one thing, or you can have one piece of equipment that does one thing extremely well, but you are not going to find a piece of equipment that does all things extremely well. And the more you add on to it, the less quality you're going to have. Ever try to put a buttonhole in with one of those $10,000 sewing machines? If you want to know how to put a good buttonhole in, I've got it on YouTube. Go to the playlist buttonhole. Vintage sewing machine, costs you a few $100. You're up and running, and you'll never make a bad buttonhole again as long as you live. So machines that take a lot of thickness and are stronger and go faster are the Baby Lock Novus. They changed the name. No, Accomplish
Right, the Novus is the,
is the brother, but they changed it to the P. They keep changing their names, but the brother, I think, is the PQ 1600, and the Baby Lock was called the Jane. So if you buy a used one, which is a good idea, it'll be called the Jane. Now it's called, I don't know, but it'll be the only machine that does 15 to 1600 stitches a minute and only straight stitches. It's the only machine they have like that, any of them, and it's all metal. There's no technology to break down, no circuit boards to short out. There are no plastic parts to crack and dry out and disintegrate. It's all metal. It'll be your sewing machine till the end of your days and maybe another generation or two after. So that's how good those machines are. The Baby Lock and the brother are the exact same machine. They just have a different name and a different housing, but they're exactly the same. They come off the same assembly line. The Janome is different. The Juki I know to be a very good machine. I'm not used the Janome, and there was something on the Janome, or they didn't have something on the Janome that I liked, and I don't remember what it was.
isn't the pen feed.
Was it the pin feed? Yeah, I don't remember, but there was something that, and I already had both the brother and the Baby Lock anyway, so I was just looking at a demo. But it was black and it had a bigger bobbin. That was the interesting thing about that Janome. But you have to test drive any machine to make sure, because if you're going to make a lot of denim jackets, that's what you want to take to the store. You tell them, put away that starched muslin that they always stitch on, because everything stitches on that beautifully. I don't want to see it on there. I want to see it on 2 layers of this denim right here with the interfacing in it. I want to see how it handles with what I'm really going to sew on. So again, now there are other machines now that are doing better at taking thickness. And if you're still in a position where you only want to have one machine that does a lot of different things, look into machines that have box feed. And I know that Brother has this, so I assume Baby Lock does too. Your feed, which is your feed dog, go like this. In a box feed, they come up, go across and down. So they feed more evenly. It's not as jerky. And those machines were claiming to do more thickness, but I have not experienced it, so I can't say that it does or it doesn't. I'm telling you what they claimed. And I think it was 4 thicknesses of denim.
And they also usually sell those machines as quilting machines.
The ones we're talking about, yes. Originally, oh, let me get back to how you can get a really good deal on one of these. Originally, they sold that Baby Lock and that Brother back, what do you think, Brenda, 20 years ago? I can't keep a track of time anymore. Anyways, a long time ago, when they first came out, they brought them out because women who were quilting, and quilting was just taking off, started in the 80s going crazy, then forward. So it was maybe the 90s. It was crazy quilting. Everybody wanted to quilt. And so they thought that women would want to do their own actual quilting, machine quilting, not the piecing, but the quilting of the 3 layers together. And these machines, again, they're more precise, they take a greater thickness, they feed better, and they have a longer space between the needle and the other end of the machine. So you had a bigger bed to do that craziness, which I don't think very many people do anymore, because they make this whole full size quilt and then they got to roll up the edges so that they can get it under the needle and stitch a small area, take it out, and then they got to unroll and re-roll again. And I think people got tired of that. On top of the fact, they came out with home long arm quilting machines that you could sit down and use. And then the bottom fell out of these for quilters. So the quilters said, well, I don't need this anymore. I'm not going to quilt. And they put those machines, and they over $1,000 machine. And Brenda, how much did you pay for yours?
Oh gosh.
Was it right around
500.
500? It's just as good a shape as mine, and I paid 1,000 because somebody dumped it and didn't want only thought they wanted to quilt with it. So I highly recommend, if you think you're in the market for one of those, go to your Facebook Marketplace, to eBay. Where else? There's another one. Anyway, wherever they sell, you might be able to buy items like that. You could get a really good deal. And I would, that along with the buttonhole machine I talk about, which is much older, that one's from the 50s, are all metal machines. So they're worth buying used because they didn't get worn out, because it's hard to wear them out as long as you keep oiling them. So I guess that's it, but definitely, if not one of those machines is in your interest, then definitely test the machines. Oh, and here's the other sad story. You, especially if you live in a smaller town, you might go to your dealership and they don't even have one for you to look at because they don't make the markup on that machine that they make on the 3, the 5, the $10,000 machine. So saving space and spending time selling that machine isn't anywhere near as profitable. So they may not have it in their inventory, but they can order it for you.
One last question. We're way over time.
Oh,
What do you do? Joni asked, what do you do about matching thread and buttons to fabric since there are so few fabric stores?
Joni. Joni's asking, is this our Joni?
Yeah.
Hi, Joni. And I'm pretty sure she asked me this before, and I don't have a good answer because when we started selling fabrics at Islander Sewing Systems on our website, I realized how you're going to pick the color. Now, in the printing industry, they use a thing called Pantone. Many of you probably heard of Pantone. And there's a thing called a Pantone swope. And it's about this wide and it's spiral bound. So the strips are this wide and they look kind of like paint strips that you get at the paint store. They have every color almost imaginable and they all have Pantone numbers. So when you're a printer and your client comes to you and they say, I want this printed and the blue is PMS 1312, that customer is going to get the exact color that they are expecting, because this PMS color is universal within printing. We don't have that in textiles. So what we did is we bought a 96 box of 96 crayons from Crayola, crayons or crayons, whatever way you say it. Uh, and we put the crayon next to the fabric so that you could identify it. And if you bought the same box of crayons, you'd be able to identify it. That's as close as we've been able to come to matching. And it's on our list of things to do, to contact the, now you could do it yourself. There's a consumer division of Coats and Clark. And we used to work with a very lovely lady, Lynn. What's Lynn's last name? Huh? Not thinking of it off the top of my head. It'll come. But anyway, she may have retired by now. But there's a consumer division. And I would call them up and ask them, what is your plan going forward? Because if they could come up with a color matching system, especially for threads and fabrics, buttons are a problem, but they're nowhere near the same problem as thread. If they could come up with a color matching system, and the way they would do this is what they do for retailers is they will send us this big folder, and it has every thread color they carry, and there'll be like maybe 10 of those threads across there. So it's actual thread color. It's not a printed color. So we were able to match from that very easily. But will they do that for the entire consumer base? I don't think so. But they could do a printed version that would be very accurate, not perfect, but be almost as accurate as the thread, because that's done in other industries. So hopefully they've got a plan, but as far as I know, I haven't heard of one yet.
You bought several colors off of eBay, didn't, I'm not, Amazon. Did you buy,
Thread?
yeah,
Yeah, but I didn't have a color match.
oh, because you told me, get your zipper, order a couple of different colors.
Yeah.
To try to match, but.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'd have to ask, there are a lot of people that do custom sewing. So they've got to be buying single zippers. Wonder what they're doing. I know Wawak sells YKK zippers. And there's a couple of zipper companies online. Zipper Stop, and I think one's just zippers.com. But they ask them, because they've got to be getting these questions. Because when you call up and you say, I want a red 12-inch metal zipper, well, is it an orange red? Is it a blue red? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it cranberry? What color red? So they must have some options. And as soon as we're able to find out, or if you find out, let us know so we can share it with everybody. But it's such a new concept with the final blow to our industry of Joann's closing, going bankrupt and closing all their stores. And I predicted that a few months before it happened. And now I'm going to give you my next prediction. Commercial patterns are going to go. They've been bought and sold and combined over the last 25 years. So many now that they're all the big names: McCall, Simplicity, Vogue, Buttrick. They're all under one umbrella. That umbrella was never in the garment industry, was never in sewing, it was never in patterns. It's a wrapping paper and cards and ribbon kind of company. They bought it as an investment. And if you know anything about the way those things go, usually when they buy companies that keep going down, 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 and they keep getting shoved together, it's because there's less and less profit. So they buy it and quickly suck as much profit as they can out of it, and then they dump it or they go bankrupt. So I don't know, but it concerns me because there's too many poor pattern makers out there. At least they had mistakes sometimes. I didn't love all of their construction techniques, as you can well imagine, but they they had excellent commercial pattern drafting software. The $25,000, $30,000 software, not the $1,000 software that the lady down the street bought and is selling patterns online, because those don't work well. So they at least can put out a good product. So I think they're going to be going before too long too. I don't see any way of rescuing them. All right, is that the end of our questions? Yay, we had a nice long program. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it helped you get over your holiday hangover. I think it did me. We will be offering more sloper classes. I personally have got to have back surgery in a few weeks, and I don't know how long I'll be out. So we're going to have to try to work around that a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to the recovering because it's been very painful for several years. So I'm looking forward to getting that past me. But it could put a little hiccup. But in the meantime, there is a nice basic sloper making class on free on YouTube on our site to make a knit sloper. And all the patterns are available. You could get going on your own if you like. I'm always willing to answer email questions. Or if you just get yourself prepared, that we'll be doing this in a few weeks. And if you would like to be one of the first to hear about it, we'll collect a list. You send an email to islandersewing@comcast.net, and all it has to say, you can even just put it in the subject line, whatever. Well, I need your name. But yeah, please add me to the first, to the Sloper workshop announcement, the next Sloper workshop announcement. We'll make sure you're one of the first to hear about it. Oftentimes the class has to be limited, so it'll give you a little foot in the door. All right, so to send that email, islandersewing@comcast.net, and Brenda and I will compile a list and we'll get back to you. But with the back surgery, I can't predict how long it's going to take. But I'll do my best to get it quickly. And I appreciate you all coming today, and all of you who are watching us on YouTube later. We love you all. We're glad that you're here. We hope we've been of some service to you. And remember, we're islandersewing.com, where you can find a lot of online classes and products that are very helpful. Thanks again. Happy sewing, everybody, from Brenda Rogerson and Janet Prey. Thank you.